Hello, everybody. We are here with C in a minute. Super excited to talk to C. She's a 4-1. It's tea talk tonight because I can't have coffee at night, you know? Can't be drinking coffee at night. There's Brandy. Get this party started.
Hello.
Hello.
Fix this here. Coffee talk at night.
I know. I was like, it's tea talk because I can't have coffee at night. And it's me when I was a little baby.
Wait, is that you printed on a coffee mug?
Yeah, it is. I look like a little boy.
Oh, I love this too.
I think it was for my dad because it's world's greatest uncle. Somehow I landed with it.
Perfect.
I need a picture. Like, I would buy a coffee mug with my face on it for myself.
I love that.
I have a funny picture coffee mug story. I was donating a bunch of stuff and I was going through our dishes and everything. And then I took it to the thrift store, and then a week and a half later, a gal that I went to high school with messaged me and was like, with a picture of a mug of Weston as a baby on it. And she's like, I just found this at Goodwill. Did you mean to donate that? And I was like, I did not mean to donate.
That defined spleen was just chucking things left and right.
She's like, I wouldn't have donated this if I was you. I was like, no, I didn't mean to. So I got it back. She bought it and then brought it back to me.
That's amazing. See, it was meant to be with you still.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome, C. And everybody, as you're joining us, we'd love to know your type authority profile. We like to know who's hanging out with us. And speaking of that, C, do you want to talk about your type authority profile and a little bit about your definition?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Well, I am a 4-1 sacral manifesting generator. I am a split definition. So I have my ego to throat, and then I've got my G center, my sacral, my spleen, and my. So I've got preservation, judgment, struggle, the money line, and discovery. And I'm the juxtaposition cross of limitation.
Yeah. All those sacral noises. 3 MGs on here tonight.
Yeah,
baby.
Chatting and sacral sounds today.
Oh yeah, all the sacral sounds.
Yeah.
We all have channel of struggle, so that's fun.
We all have, and C and
We're a bunch of strugglers.
Yeah, we have very similar designs. She has preservation, struggle, money line. That's what I have too. And then I'm split just like she is. And so it's interesting to see somebody with that split of the 45-21 and how easy it is to be not self, ego manifester, you know? So it's very fascinating to meet somebody else who has very similar definition.
Yeah, it's very easy with that ego to throw. It's very easy to want to just initiate things, and I also find that there's maybe a bit more anger than I can experience a lot more anger than typically for manifesting. So I wonder if a lot of it's to do with that kind of split there.
Yeah. And sometimes I don't realize how much anger I have suppressed. And then I'm like, oh, there it is. You know, I'm not frustrated. I'm angry.
Yeah. You don't let yourself get frustrated. You just skip that bit. You just go straight to anger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's like MGs that have manifestor channels, because there probably aren't that many of us that actually have manifestor channels. So I feel like we probably experience more anger. Because I was noticing that with myself today, Brandy, when I was voice messaging, I was like, oh my God, I have so much anger. Like, this isn't frustration. This is anger. I'm mad right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I could feel that. I could feel
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And that ego definition, it comes out really, ego to throat, it's like harsh, you know, it's like, it's easy to just be like I catch myself, I'm like, oh, I know I can strong arm things and initiate, and it comes from a place of just pure willpower, you know, and then I'm like, that is not correct for me.
Yeah, I definitely find when it comes to using your strategy, it's so easy for me to, like, my heart is very loud, my willpower is very loud, and it's really easy to not have a sacral yes to something and then be like, oh, I'm just going to do it. I just have to do it. Like, oh, you know, it's really, really easy, and kind of backtracking and remembering that the sacral said no. I'm just going to.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
talking about that in class the other day, how it's like a lot of defined hearts think that they can just push through things with willpower instead of getting it's like, it's an amazing, beautiful gift when you can use it when you've entered into something correctly. But if you entered into something with just willpower, that's not correct for you unless you're ego authority. So it's really easy to just rely on the willpower. And John Cole was saying that when Ra channeled, or not channeled, but got the information, he heard all of the centers as different voices, and the ego sounded like a little child almost. It was like the youngest voice that was out of all of the centers.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine that. It's like almost like a small tantrum, like a so little. They're so little, but they're so powerful, and they get what, and then they have to go and sleep afterwards.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to say before we dive into being a 4-1, it's a very rare profile. You don't see it very often. And I saw this really interesting synchronicity, or whatever you want to call it. You had posted a video on your other page on the poll, and I messaged Teresa and I said, isn't it ironic watching C in her flow with a thing that is so fixed? Like, you have to be on this fixed thing. It's fixed to the ceiling, it's fixed to the floor, and then you're flowing, but you're always holding on to this fixedness. And I was like, that is just so fucking cool, you know?
So poetic.
Like, yeah, so poetic to be like, to watch you in your flow just around this fixed pole. And I was just like, that just sums it up, man. I just was like in this little bliss moment of like, life is awesome. Look at that. It's perfect.
Do you know that? Funny, I don't just do pole, I do circus arts too. So I do all the other aerials. And do you guys know the silks, the hammocks?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when I first began doing them, I never got the hang of it. And the one thing that I always said made me really angry is I was like, they move too much. You go to grab it and it's not there. It's over there. It makes me so angry. At least with the pole, it's not going to move. It's there. Like, so that's really, because I always got really angry at the silks. I was like, don't go anywhere. I need to know who you are.
You need that sturdy foundation.
Yeah.
Oh, what a cool little detail. Thank you, Brandy.
Yeah, I just noticed that. I'm just like watching this like beauty and flow, and this with this fixed and flow. It was just cool. I was like, that's a 4-1 right there, you know, which is like in art form. So yeah, I see we have another 4-1 emotional manifester on here also. So that's cool.
Hello.
Yeah. So tell us about your whatever you want to share. What do you feel called to share?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, I know. I just asked an MG and open-ended.
Yeah, I know. That's very open-ended.
I know.
Wow.
How is it having a first line body?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, having a first line body, it's really interesting. That's something I've been thinking about more. And one place I've noticed that it really shows up is questioning everything around you and needing to feel safe. I can kind of imagine that first line bodies are the kind of people that like airplanes. They don't like to swim in the ocean. They need to feel really secure and safe. So something that I actually noticed the other day was I was walking in the park and I noticed I always look at the ground because I need to see a few steps ahead of where I'm going to make sure that there's nothing there. There's like this really unconscious like need for security. You're always like looking around, making sure that everything's gonna be okay. I always kind of, when I came to design, at first I was like, I don't resonate with being a four personality. Now I do. I think a lot of that is a bit of all of the surface information on fourth lines. A lot of it, before you get a bit deeper into design, is kind of wishy-washy. It's kind of like, oh, you're a social butterfly. You love to be with people. And I was kind of like, what? I just like to read. So I actually identified as a first line in my head a lot more when I came to design. There's still definitely that that introspection, the need to be alone. Like I'll always find doing things unconsciously. Like when I wind down, I'm always either playing chess or reading a book or, you know, something like that, nerding out. And that's kind of my, when I'm not trying to think, that's just something that my body like to do. So yeah, I'd say the first line body people are like afraid of airplanes and they're afraid of going bungee jumping and things like that. They're like, that's not safe.
Yeah. Yeah, you also have a defined spleen, so you know. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not going to preserve me. Preservation.
Yeah, that's not going to preserve. No, I'm not choosing that struggle.
The other day, didn't we, Brandy?
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. It's so funny to see how how you design your definition just kind of like flows throughout, and how similar and different people are, just by their definition. But then, like, so for instance, you have the opposite variables of Teresa and I.
You guys have the same variables.
Yeah, we are PRRDRL, and so you're the flip side of that, and so it's really interesting to see that. How do you experience being a 4-1? Because you're in New Zealand, and so you guys have been in lockdown, and how has that been for you with this? Yeah.
So definitely at first I was like, no, it'll be okay. I actually just moved up to the city that I'm living in as well. And I was really excited. I was like, I'm going to make all these new friends. It's going to be like a big experiment. And I've been stuck at home by myself. So it's really, really hard. Government just said that we're allowed to go and make friends with people a little bit. I mean, we're under really heavy restrictions while we do it, but it's been so much better for me just being able to see people. It's actually, it's been so hard being in the lockdown, and needing that interaction as well, because I was just living with one person too, and so we'd often hang out. But I think that you still need a lot of variety, right? You still need lots of different people, lots of different stimulation around you, because you need to be thinking about different things, not having the same conversations all day as well. And I was living a really social life before, so it's been really tricky, especially because we have no real plan to get out of it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine with your channel of discovery, you're like looking for those serendipitous experiences and like, oh, I can just go here and then see what happens and then
And
go
bump
here.
into
And it's like,
this and,
yeah, you don't have that flow. You're not available. You can't just like flow with the world like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing too is I've noticed that it's really nice going out and being able to see people, but I've never been one to just be like, hey, come around, let's have a coffee and we'll just sit down and chat. I've always been like, okay, let's go jet skiing or let's go to the library. Or, you know, there's been like that, there's that left environment that really, we need to be doing activities while we're together.
Brandy and I are like, we'll just sit on the porch. That's literally, I went to go visit her and that's all we did. We just sat on the porch.
we're both short, so it's like, yep, the porch.
God, no.
You're like, no, that's my worst nightmare.
We'll watch you jet ski.
Yeah.
Think about that. Love to see you guys. Let's do something. Yeah.
Do activities.
Yeah. Yeah. I did meet up with a friend. I met up with a friend and because there was nothing for us to do, but I was like, we have to do something. And we walked like 20,000 steps around a park over the course of like 3 hours or something.
Wow.
Just for something to do. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
So,
it's been hard.
let's retrace a little bit and talk about, if you're comfortable, would you like to talk about growing up as a 4-1, like, you know, moving and all of the, just your life experience as a 4-1 before you even knew you were a 4-1?
I would love to. I feel like I have yeah, there's definitely a lot there. So as a kid, probably the most relevant thing that I have in regards to being a 4-1 was we used to move around a lot. So we moved house most years, sometimes twice a year, to different houses. And I always found that really unsettling, really unsettling. And then when I was young, 13 or 14, we moved to Australia. And that ruined me, right? Like my parents, they had really good intentions. They had really good intentions. They wanted to create a much better life for my brother and I, you know, but I guess I just kind of felt like I built a foundation and it all got taken from me. And so I had a lot of mental health problems. I didn't go to school. I didn't go back to school after that when I was 15 because I just kind of couldn't do it. And then got into like a really bad crowd. And then something really funny happened is after a few years, my parents were like, oh, holy heck, this is not working. We need to send her back to New Zealand. And so I went back to New Zealand and then everything kind of began to pick up for me. But now I noticed that those patterns that I had in me, the constantly moving around, they're still very deep. So in the last 4 or 5, 6 months, this year I've lived in four houses already. Pre-COVID, I just used to travel. I would book a ticket for a country, not a return, and then people would say, "Oh, where are you off to now?" No idea. Don't know. Maybe I go to America. Maybe I go to Japan. Maybe you know, I'll come back home. Who knows? So in a way, the lockdown has been really, really nice for me, almost forcing me to build that foundation somewhere, get some stability. It was really hard not having that stability. And it's so funny because I have a little brother who's 12 and he's a emotional MG. He's a 3-6. So in profiles, and he is sweet. Like he doesn't care. Like he came to Australia with us. They moved house a lot because obviously he's so my mom, and he thinks it's great. It's so funny watching how it broke me as a person, and he's just like, eh. You know, resilient 3 and 6 lines. He's like, that's all good. I don't care.
Yeah.
it's really funny seeing the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they're meant to be like adaptable and you're just, you know, that, and my husband's a 3'6", and when we talk about moving, he's like, yeah. And I'm like, new foundation. You know,
No, you've got to establish all those memories in the house and where does everything go. And, you know, maybe you knew the neighbors, or also sometimes it can be as simple as finding comfort in driving the same way home from work or from school, or, you know, whatever it is every day. Like, it's a really comforting thing. Find comfort in your routines. So yeah, growing up was kind of funny. I was a nerd. I just wanted to read in the library. Like, my first line really came out when I was in primary. Do you guys call that elementary?
yeah.
I was young. I didn't have any friends. I just read. And then at high school, I became cool, which is probably why I didn't want to move away. You know, I was like, I have friends now. It was amazing. It felt so good.
Like your fourth line came alive.
Yeah, all of that moving must have been hard, both for, I mean, being a 4-1, but that fourth line and then the first line, I mean, the combination of that and so much moving. Yeah, I mean, even so I'm a 4-6, and my fourth line, like, I've moved around, you know, but I have to have like a core, like a tribe wherever I move to, you know. Oh, don't take me away from the tribe, you know. Or if I go to another one, okay, is there a tribe that I can go to that is safe, you know?
Totally. I've noticed, you know, even when I was traveling all the time, I would always go somewhere where I had some kind of vice there. Like, either I'd been there before, or I knew someone who would be there that I would be able to meet up with, or something like that. Like, there would always have to be something familiar. Someone would say, let's go together. Like, I could never just go to a completely random place. There needed to be something to hold on to. I think that's the core thing.
I see we have a question. Carla is saying, I would love to know your personality, son.
Oh, it is 60.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then on the design side, it's 28. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know that mutation. I'm just missing that 3.
Yeah. I think you got one question on your end when you asked if people wanted to know anything. Do you remember what that was?
It was asking about career. It was, what's the best career for a 4-1? I have no idea. But really, it would have to be something, I think, where you have equal opportunities to externalize and investigate.
Yeah.
I would say something that builds deep connections with people. So, like, being a 4th line, it's not just about meeting as many people as you can. It's about building deep connections, building rapport, you know.
Yeah, we're picky.
So it's going to be something like, probably it's not going to be working at a call center. Like, it's going to be something where you really care about it and you can research it. Lots of opportunities to dive deeper and deeper. But I think that it's important to be able to do both, to be able to do a lot of research, to investigate, and then also share that with other people.
Oh, you know what I just thought of was like a detective, because you have like the whole squad of the tribe of the police or whatever, and then you go and like detectify and research, investigate. I make up words on here, I guess, all the time.
Detectify.
Detectify.
I love that.
I hit the nail on the head. Yeah, okay.
You know?
Is a detective.
Yeah, see, career change. It's time for a career change for you.
Yeah.
Solve
like,
crimes.
Sacral says, yes, I'm going to be a detective now.
And don't leave your job until your other job's already hired you.
Oh, yeah. Mm-mm.
Big thing for fourth lines.
Fourth
Yep.
lines, no.
Big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your biggest, the biggest thing that you noticed that you had to decondition, or the biggest struggle that you had with your deconditioning process? How many years are you into living your design?
Just one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for real?
I know she's a first line though.
Yeah, that's true. I'm like, I dicked around with my and just in my second line flow for so long.
Yeah. And Gene Keys for longer so I got in through Gene Keys, and then I probably known about design for maybe a year or two longer, but in the experiment proper for a year.
Mm-hmm.
What was the question? My consecutive brains like, wait, no, I remember.
What has been your biggest like aha moment or struggle with your deconditioning process? Has it like, and if that relates to your profile, if not, or if it's your definition, like what it?
Totally the solar plexus.
Oof.
Then like I always kind of knew that it was a thing, that some people were obviously, you know, we all experience emotions, but I always knew that there was like a difference. And then as soon as I found out that some people are constantly transmitting them in their wave and some people feel them, it just really validated it for me. I used to get really bad anxiety, and if I would walk into a room, I would get overwhelmed. I get completely overwhelmed. This actually links back to your first question about the first line body. So I would get completely overwhelmed and have to leave perhaps because I just got so much information. And as soon as I found out about design, I'm not kidding, having the information about having an undefined solar plexus was quite literally enough to get rid of that. I never found, or never to the point where I couldn't just understand what it was, and then, you know, maybe I'd have to go into a room for just a little moment and but it never happened as intensely. It's like you get the information and you know that it's not yours. So that was probably a really, really big aha moment for me. And sorry, were you gonna say something?
Oh no, go for it. Keep going.
I was gonna say, in terms of the profile, definitely realizing about the fourth lines, that just how we really are about those deep connections, and it's about going deep rather than just the social butterfly, because I never really saw myself as someone who loved socializing for the sake of it. Especially not with like meet as many people as you can randomly. But with the solar plexus, that definitely was a game changer in my life.
Yeah. What does like emotional energy feel like in your body? Like when you walk into a room and you can tell there's people who are emoting, right? Because that's the difference.
Yeah.
We'll experience emotions, but we emotionals emote. What does that feel like to you?
So before, it used to feel like I'd walk into a room and then I kind of, you know, those big red rubber gloves, and they just like, I'd get punched in the chest or in the stomach. Like panicky, nervous. Now it doesn't feel like that. It's just feels like information. Sometimes I might feel it in my body, or I might become emotional. It really depends on what someone's like in their wave. Some people who are emotional, I find really comforting to be around. Perhaps almost like the way undefined spleen would like being around a defined spleen. Like they bring that sense of like stability. Warmth. Like someone who's really, obviously their wave's gonna drop, but just comfortable, respects it. It can actually feel really, really nice. And I find that I'm angled in other people's emotions, and I don't react quite as much anymore. Yeah, it can feel really good.
Yeah. Oh
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I get that.
I
feel
get that.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, the solar plexus is about like pleasure,
yeah.
right? So I mean, when you get that emotional energy, and I think we've talked about that in class too, like the splenic side of the chart is cold and the solar plexus side is warm. So we get to experience that contrast, like sometimes how splenic people can just be cold with their no. But then
Yeah.
solar plexus people, it's like there's this rich warmth to it. So that's cool to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, definitely. If I'm by myself, I would say like my it can be cold. I agree.
Yeah.
And it's
But
not a bad thing. It's just like a temperature, right? It's just like there's a different temperature there, you know?
like I don't know if this is relatable to a lot of people, but my emotions, they normally completely flatline, but then occasionally they'll do that. And sometimes being around an emoting person can kind of lock you into a smaller, and it feels like safety for a little while, but then you do have to go away and be by yourself in your own aura and get it out. But it's like a little safety net.
Oh, I never even thought about that, but it's yes, because when I'm by myself, yeah, and then something will just, and then I look like the emotional, we look like the emotional ones because
Absolutely.
we're like, blah, and and otherwise I'm like, do I even emote at all? Like when I'm by myself, I'm like, nothing, and then I enter in where I'm either in connection with somebody who completes and who defines my solar plexus, or I'm around emotionals and I'm like, ooh, this feels like warm. You said warm and now I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I literally just walk around my house having emotions. Just like, I'll be like talking to myself and be like, da, 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 da. Like,
Yeah.
so much drama.
I've been emotionally defined for most of the year.
Same.
It's been maybe 3 weeks that I haven't been emotionally defined. And I was like, I forgot about this. This rocks.
I know. I messaged Teresa one day, and I was like, oh, I thought 19 was going to be in transit longer because I have 49, and I was like, oh, it's not, and I am free. I'm free.
Yeah,
and
and
channel of emoting for like ever, and then I had 1949 forever, and then all of a sudden it was gone, and I'm like, but I could feel it before I checked it because I was like, something feels, and then it's a completely different feeling.
Yeah, I swear I quite literally felt it go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. I messaged my friend. I'm lucky enough to have a 4-1 like bestie, like a human design bestie who's a 4-1. I'm so lucky, and I like messaged her, and I was like, I'm free. No.
I see some people chiming in, so I'm gonna look and see what's on here. I always worry others will feel the depths of my emotions, so this is nice to hear. Good recognition. It's so much easier to cry, with an undefined solar plexus. Well, it is because it doesn't like drag you anywhere. You can just like cry and then it's gone. But I noticed that when
I'm cry.
Yeah, emotionally defined, and I'm like trying to like name it, and then I'm like, no, this is what I tell people. You don't have to name it. You're just emoting, but like it pulls you into a low, right? And I'm like, ugh. But crying while you're undefined is like just crying, and then it just disappears.
Being undefined and crying too, you'll be like completely fine, and then for like 20 seconds you'll be like, oh. Which is the reason why it can feel really nice being around an like emotional person.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Somebody else says, I'm not only an emo 4-1 Manny, but I'm also single deaf, and the only channel I have is the 2212. So I feel all this. I feel this combo. Yep. And then Amy literally look crazy because can cry 2 minutes later, good now. Oh yeah. That's exactly it. And then, you know, if you want to try to do that around somebody else and they're like invested in your emotion and you're like, no, I'm good. I just needed to, like, I don't know, shed some water.
It's part of the deconditioning process to cry because it moves the cellular energy, right?
Yeah.
It's funny hearing you guys talk about this because when I experience my wave, it's like it hits me quick, but it'll literally be in waves. So today I was having an emotional experience and it would be like ugly cry, then it's like, oh, I'm fine, and then 30 seconds later, ugly cry, oh, I'm fine, and it's like pulsing almost, which would make sense because I have a root emotional wave as well. What's that?
You have 3 waves?
Yeah, I have 659, 1222, and 3955.
Wow.
That'd be intense. I definitely, Carla, the ugly cry belongs to the emotionally defined. Yes, it does.
Yeah. And I noticed that too. Did you notice that, C, when you were emotionally defined, like ugly cry, like this cry that you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, like my face hurts after because I'm just like,
so hard to...
Yeah, it was just wild. It's so, so wild. Somebody else asked a question. What was it? I threw it in the chat right before. I can't remember.
I think it was something about relationships, and that was going to be my question for you because I've worked with a few 4-1s. One of my really good friends is a 4-1 actually, and the thing that she's struggled the most with is relationships because she gets with people that like want to change her, and then she almost tries to cater to them and like change herself, and then it always ends up terribly. And I mean, that could be anybody, but I think specifically for 4-1s, it's almost like you need to find people to support you on your journey of just like being exactly who you are and not changing yourself at all because you're not that like adaptable or whatever.
Yeah, it's so I think the thing that's different with the 4th line in the 4-1 with the other profiles is like, you guys know the 4th line has that social tactic where it can kind of morph and change its, I guess, views, belief, its personality to be with friends and to be with people. And then the 4-1 really can't do that. It can pretend like it can be talking to someone and it can be like, oh yeah, sure, I don't mind, whatever. But then as soon as it goes back to being by itself, nothing's changed. And I think as a result, you can feel quite alienated because no one gets to see that part of you. You put on the front that the does to maintain its friendships and to keep the peace, but nothing inside of you changes. Like a 4-1 can't be changed. You cannot do it. Literally cannot. And so you really do have to find someone who's in complete allowance of you. And yeah, people can't change you. I mean, I think it's impossible.
Yeah. You're like a statue almost, you know?
Yeah, you really are. If anything, you're more likely to, I don't know, intentionally drag people or pull people onto your geometry and your fate rather than be pulled into anyone else's. If you let someone pull you somewhere that you're not meant to go, you're derailed and you'll feel it. Like I don't know, for me, I'll just break down mentally. I won't feel like myself. And then everything in my life will crumble. Because I guess your personality, your fullness keeps it all together, right? So yeah, it's really hard. The best advice I would have would be to find someone who has a lot of allowance for you, or you're just going to be pretending to be different around them. And then when you're alone, a completely different person, which is alienating.
Wow. That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
My sister just had a baby and he's a 4-1.
Ooh.
Is it kind of weird that you're not, like, as a right angle cross, I'm very aware that this life is like about me, you know, and my experience. And then the left angle cross, it seems like they're very aware that this life is about the other, but you're both, right? So it's like, what's that experience like?
That's funny. I just pulled out my incarnation cross book and I was like, oh, I want to know about her cross. And you just asked that question.
Yeah. So it's, in a way, it's hard to answer because I'm never in this life that I remember been anywhere else. But I guess, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, the right angle is here to create those relationships, to do things, and then the left is, I guess, either cleaning up, some people say, or whatever. I just feel really like I'm moving through time, giving bits, just connecting it. So I'll meet a lot of people and they might need something from me. Maybe it's just a friend on that day. Maybe it's some information. Maybe I'm going to connect two people to each other. I have no idea what it could be, but I kind of do feel like I'm doing that service, I guess, in the sense that I'm giving things to people, but I'm also getting stuff myself. It's a real, like, it's an exchange. I get things from too. But yeah, I always felt like I was here not for people, not here for myself, not here for anyone else, just kind of here for something. It's a hard one to explain, actually.
I feel like you did a good job though. Like I'm getting a feeling for what that would be like. It's yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good that you got a feeling.
It was like very human way that you described it. It's like, oh yeah, you know.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the information about being a 4-1 is really like the bonus life thing. Like, what? Like a lot of the stuff is really, really wishy-washy,
Mm-hmm.
and has been hard to get through. Me and my 4-1 friend talk about that. I'm so sorry if I'm being mean, but we roast the bonus with life. We're like, if this was a bonus life, I wouldn't be doing this.
I was gonna ask you about that. Like, how did she even come up with that? You know, it's like, I mean, people have their own creative expressions, but I guess it's interesting. And I think that's why it doesn't do the system justice to change the names of things, because it's like, that's your interpretation and perspective. And then that's not going to mean anything to the person who's actually experiencing it, because the specific words are meant to mean something to the person that's experiencing it.
Oh, definitely. Like I've spoken to maybe not a lot of 4-1s, but a decent handful compared to how many there are out there. And everyone who's actually living the bonus life is like, this is not a bonus life.
Right.
Yeah. I so personally.
Well, and like with things like when there's not so much conversation about the 4-1 profile, and so when you're looking at material or you're seeing what people are putting out, you're really like absorbing it. And so when you hear things and you're like, well, I guess this is what that is, you know, it's like
Totally.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around it, and it's taken me a good deal of time to kind of read it and then think over it, live through it, and be like, oh yeah, maybe, or like, no, that's rubbish. It kind of feels like it's just copied and pasted from somewhere, a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I totally agree that not changing the language is really, really important. That was definitely like when I came to design, as soon as I read about my profile and the fixed fate, I was like, yes, I feel this. I feel that it makes sense, but I couldn't investigate deeper. Every time I tried to investigate deeper, I was like, what is going on? So yeah, I definitely.
Yeah, what is going on exactly?
Yeah.
I think it's great though for such a rare profile to have a first line in it, so that you want to know, so that you guys are actually like, give me some more. Where's it at? You know,
Yeah.
all the things
I
that
know
we,
more about it.
yeah, you're like diving in. Yeah.
It's really cool. Like, there are some things that I look backwards on my life and I'm like, thinking about fixed fate, that's one of those things that was definitely just meant to happen. And one of them was definitely finding design. And another one was definitely pole dancing.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a 4-1 activity. I mean, that's like, I can never look at you on a pole again without just seeing the beauty in the art, like I said in the beginning. Like, that's just fucking 4-1 all over.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. What a great analogy that was. I loved that.
Yeah.
And the silks thing just made it so much funnier.
So good.
Yeah, so so I have a maybe brother who's older than me, who I'm like 99.9% certain he's my brother. And I looked up his chart in that entire day. I don't know exactly what time he's born, but I looked the entire 24 hours of that day, and it's a 4-1 like all day long.
Really?
So
that's crazy.
But I think it changes at like 11:23 p.m. But so the chances of him being born in that small time frame, but there's been this back and forth conversation for like 12 years about if he's my brother or not, and him and I will talk and all of this, but he like won't leave his foundation. I'm like, he's totally a 4-1. Like, he doesn't, you know, he has his foundation, his family. I'm like, I'm not trying to break up your family. We don't have to like interact, but like, hey, you know, there's all this stuff that you might want to know. And so just looking at that, and I'm like, oh, that's a, you know, and then if he's meant to, if it's, you know, fixed fate, if it's meant to happen, yeah, I don't know. It's just wild thinking about that. Like, I'm like, why are you so stubborn? Why don't you just want to know? And then I'm like, oh, as soon as I pull up his design, I was like, 4-1. Yeah.
I think, like, if it were me, the really interesting thing, like, about a 4-1 is, like, that not being changed and it being impossible to be changed. So if you've said something, and then, like you say, if he's supposed to, it literally makes no difference if you miss every day for the rest of your life, or if you just message him once and never do anything. Like, he will do it or he will not do it.
Yeah.
That's actually a great example of how there's no swaying us. There's just like, hello, here is an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, because at one point when I was down in the state that he lives in the last time, I just let him know that I was there.
Yeah.
And then I went out to dinner with my family, and my phone was on silent and all this stuff. And then I went to bed, and then I woke up the next morning, and he had messaged me back that night and asked if I was still in town, if I wanted to meet up. But I was already driving. I was already driving out of state, and I was like, no, that was my one chance.
The one chance.
Yeah. But it's just fascinating to see the differentiation between everybody, but then also the similarities, even just within profile.
Yeah, definitely. That's such a cool story. I'm so shocked about like the large time frame window.
Yeah.
The 4-1-ness.
Yeah. I was too, and I was like, oh my gosh, all day. I was like, because I'm like, I need to know, because I'm like, I'm curious. I want to know more about, you know, how you interact. I feel like we would be very similar. He's a 4-1 MG.
Wow.
Yeah.
So interesting.
I
remember
that. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go for it. What were you saying? There's like a little lag.
About relationship was specifically about people being scared of your fixed fate.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
I wonder if they can feel it. Like, there's that energetic knowing that that person has a fixed fate, even if you don't know about design, you know?
And you feel a bit like helpless that you're not in control of, like, this is going to be our future.
Yeah,
Wow.
because that actually really describes my friend and like what she experiences in relationship. It's almost like the people she dates are afraid to commit to her, even though they're really drawn to her. And it's like, I think they kind of know that they can't change her and they don't like not having control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's really cool thinking that. I wonder too. I wonder if people can pick up on that. I have no idea. But I guess, you know, if it does scare someone, then like same as the advice before, like they're gonna try and control you. You can't be controlled. You're either gonna get angry and flip them off, or you're gonna be miserable every time you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
just following strategy and authority, right? Like we were talking about in the chat. And like you'll just be on your fractal, and if they're on it, they're on it. If they're not, they're not.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's kind of like one thing that I do think that juxtapositions have in common with the left angles. I'm not sure about right angles as well, but like those people that need to come into your life, I think that, you know, if you're a left angle, everyone that comes into your life is very significant and you really need to pay attention to that and be aware of that. I feel like that's the same for 4-1s, but like it's very important to let them go when it's time to let them go. Like you're here to bridge. You're here to bridge, so be a bridge, not like a freaking bridge that hugs you until, you know, like you've done it. If you've energetically done it, then
Yeah, it makes me wonder how many 401s there are in the world that have no idea about design. Well, there's tons, but how easy, no, how susceptible they are to conditioning to try to change and try to be more fluid, and how much like self-help programs and everything that they're doing to try to be, you know, in therapy, to in their relationship to, you know, do the things. And I'm like, oh, like how they're like conditioning themselves, you know. So yeah.
Well,
Wow.
yeah, I think somebody talked about that in class that I forget who it was, but they were a third line, whoever they were, and they were dating somebody who was a 4-1.
Oh, yeah.
And they
Yeah.
were like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm super adaptable and fluid, and I can tell that she's trying to be that way for me, but it never, I can tell it feels terrible for her.
Yep. I remember that.
yeah, definitely. I mean, God, I used to, before design, I used to do all those things, like, you know, manifestation courses and healing your spirituality and becoming a better person and all that. And something that I used to was a big focus for a while is like attachment, not getting attached, unattachment, don't
Oh, yeah.
tie to anything, and it just doesn't make sense for me. Doesn't make sense at all. Like, you know, surrender, and like in a way there's a lot of surrender. There's a lot of surrender, but not when it comes to the way that you are. It's kind of violent against yourself. And 4-1s can totally be broken. Like if we try to bend, then we suffer. That's my channel of struggle talking.
We all have that
We
here.
suffer. Strugglers.
Yeah.
Carla has a question. Have you lost anyone close to you death? From what I understand, it's harder for a 4-1 to experience that. Wondering how you coped.
Yeah, gee, I lost someone I was really, really close with this year.
Oh.
I lost someone when I was really young as well. I would say that the death that we had this year was probably the hardest death that I've had. She was a 3-5-5-5-3 splenic projector. And I think it was okay. It was okay, because I've begun the deconditioning process. You know, I'm a little bit through. I could use my strategy and authority. When I was a kid, it was really, really hard. Like, just wanting to hold on to them, because you lose your foundation, right? It's, you lose the person, but you also lose your foundation. I've always had kind of interesting views around death, I suppose.
Well,
I
you
always,
have 28 in your,
yeah, conscious son.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, other bits in my design maybe kind of give me a slightly different point of view. Death, I try to look at it really objectively, right? Like, death's inevitable, it's the next adventure. But yeah, it can be really hard. Like, 28 is an interesting gate around death, like, and commitment, getting out of commitment. That's a funny thing to bring up. Yeah, it would be really hard losing that foundation, definitely.
So did you notice, because before you knew about design, when you moved back from Australia to New Zealand, did you notice a difference in your body and your health and anything like that when you were kind of back in? And then a second part of that question would be, how have you noticed your relationship with your, did you notice that like things were a sacral no before you even knew what a sacral was, when you were trying to change yourself to be more fluid and adaptable?
Okay, so yeah, when I was, oh my goodness, this is such a 28 thing to do. Okay, so when I was in Australia, I was really unhappy there. And obviously there was a lot more to it like than this. But essentially, what I decided I would do when I was a teenager is I was like, okay, I'm going to do as many substances as I can, make as many bad decisions as I can, stuff up my life so badly, like, you name it, I went there. So that parents have no choice but to send me back home. I was mental, and it worked. My never listens to this. Yeah, I absolutely was like, okay, only way to get it, no problem. So body was definitely better when I got back, because as soon as I got back, I was like, cool, I don't have to do these drugs and stuff anymore. I can just like live a normal life. That worked. Really successful.
That makes me think about when I did that. I had that same situation, not in Australia, but
Yeah,
just in my life. And then I just was able to just be like, one day, I could stop. And then,
just out of it. Like, that was a show.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it, you know what? It was really traumatic and whatnot. But now that I look back at it, I'm like, wow, I totally was just like, how can I get out of this? And I was just willing to fully struggle to do that. Because it had already been broken. You know, once the foundation's broken, you're like, what's a little more fire? Yeah, my body, as for a sacral response, honestly, no. I didn't really get the sacral response thing until design. I was always much more splenic. My spleen, I've always heard my spleen. Like, I hear that really loud and clear. I always could. But the sacral, that took, and to be honest, still, like, I'm still building a relationship with it. Like, we speak, like, it's so easy to like heart power, throat, spleen, and like those three in a blender, and then you have me. The sacrals takes patience for me.
Hmm. I like how you brought that up, because I think a lot of sacrals would define spleen. We get it's easy to get confused. It's like, oh yeah, I know what that is. No, that's spleen. That's like that. And it's loud until you get familiar with your sacral.
Definitely. And like another thing is like going back to that bad language thing. When people say to sacrals, like, do what lights you up, like, I feel like being lit up is, maybe it can be in the sacral, but it's not really, is it? I don't feel like,
It's emotional.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really feel like the sacral, it gets energy, it gets energized, it gets committed, but it doesn't really, it's not quite the correct language. So that was a bit confusing for a bit as well.
Yeah. Earlier today, I went back to work at Inner Space for the first time in a while, and I was lit. My whole body was like vibrating, and I was messaging Teresa, and I'm like, I love this, and oh my gosh, and I'm just so lit up. And then I came home, and I was like burnt. I was like, I just used up all my sacral energy.
Like, were you around people?
Yeah, I was around people, and I was in my environment with lots of windows. I mean, it was like, it's ideal there for me. And then I get home, and it was like 7:30, and I was like, I have to go live in 2 hours. What am I going to do? And I was like, do I keep going or do I lay down? And I just sat on the couch and then of course, like, as I was getting ready to do this live, just the idea of getting on here with you guys, and I'm like, oh, here we go.
I feel like a better phrase for the sacral would be like, what gives you energy? Because I will notice, like today I was over at my mom's house and I was starting to get really tired. I was yawning because I told her I would help her with some things. And the tasks that she had me doing were really boring. And I was like a sacral no to it. But I was like, I told her, I was like, we're working on building a garden together. I'm like, I want to work in the dirt. I want to be outside. It's really nice today. As soon as we go outside and start like pounding away at this dirt and digging, I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I have all this energy and I'm all excited. And I'm like, I was literally about to fall asleep 5 minutes ago as you were having me do a boring task. So.
Yes. And I love how having these real life examples, like, you guys see me on here, I'm lit, I'm awake, I'm good. 5 minutes before we hopped on, Weston's like, can you come up and tuck me in? I'm like, I'll give you a hug and kiss here. Like, I don't have the energy to do that, but here I am. Like, it's literally like, what do we have the energy for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like what the sacral tells you what you have energy for and what you don't. So lit up, to me, like the phrase lit up feels like when I'm in an emotional high and I'm like, like that's what, or like caffeine rush, like that's kind of the sensation that comes through when I hear the phrase lit up. So
like just high on life. It's that feeling, because that sacral is just like, it's that energy, but you're almost like, for me, and because I'm just coming out of it today too, is like, I didn't feel that lit upness while I was doing those things. It was after. It was that satisfaction, right? I was satisfied.
You were satisfied drunk.
And then after, exactly. Then after, I was just, I thought I was tired, and maybe, we've talked about this before, Teresa, where maybe I wasn't tired. I was satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Have you felt that? See, what's satisfaction for you?
Yeah.
What does it feel like for you?
Satisfaction for me is, so I think that, not saying tedious things won't ever happen, but you know that when you have a lot of resistance in the outside world, I feel like, for me at least, I know that I'm not doing things quite correctly. I'm not in the right space. I feel like satisfaction for me is just that really smooth flow. And especially as a manifesting generator, it's like, if something's going really well and then it begins to get a bit like, I can just leave it and go and do something else. And it's that really like easy flow of things moving really, really quickly. Feels really good. And then, at the end of the day, we kind of spoke about this, and we were like, oh, all I want to do is like get up and move things, and but if I'm like, oh, I just want to sit down, like you do, you kind of like satisfied hangover, like you're just, I'm tired, and you have a I think the way that you sleep has a lot to do with your satisfaction levels, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other people do, of course, but I know that in lockdown, I'm having a harder time sleeping. And even if I exercise a lot, I know that I'm just not using the energy that I need to be using.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, shows
Yeah.
up in what you do. You definitely get a bit like, whew, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's like it wants to be used for work, you know? It's like I notice I have like these marathon weeks sometimes where I'll be really slow, like no clients, and then all of a sudden I'm booked up completely for 6 days, and it feels like I'm in this tornado of work for 6 days, and then I come out, and today was my first day off in a while, and I'm like, and I'm tired, but I'm satisfied, and it's because I was working. You know, if I'm just like doing exercise, there's a different like
Yes.
I think those of us with root energy, like we, especially the channel of struggle, like we need to get that energy out,
Yeah.
but it's almost like we can do that in spurts, but there it isn't accompanied with the same satisfaction as working, as in like doing our passion or ways that our sacral enjoys work.
Definitely. Like I was saying to don't know who, open head, whoop, someone talking about the lockdown and how it's really nice. I'm still working a little bit in the lockdown, but I'm working like this much of what I used to be. And I was like, yeah, it's nice seeing friends. It's nice seeing like doing a little bit of work, but nothing makes me feel, it's not enough. Like I want to be working and I just don't feel good unless I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It really does want to do work. And even if it's not work, as in like, oh, I have a 9 to 5, you know,
Yeah.
like you were saying, helping on a house,
Yeah.
like just doing like really those productive things that make you feel accomplished, that real building energy.
Yeah. Where there's no such thing as time, and all of a sudden you're just like, that's, remember when Thomas did that? I don't know if you ever took that survey, C, but Thomas put a survey out, or was it Talus?
Talus, yeah, I remember.
Talus, yeah, that MG survey. Like when you're doing something you love, how much energy do you have? Unlimited energy, Today, when I was going down to inner space, I asked Andy if he wanted to come with me to get out of the house for a little bit. He's like, how long are you going to be there? I'm like, about 2 hours. I was there for like 8. He did not. He was like, I'm going to stay at home because I know you're lying. I know you're going to get there. And then you're going to call me on your way home and be like, it's like a vortex there. I don't know what happens. And it's not necessarily the place. It is the environment, but also when I'm in that space, I can just like, and I just respond to things around me. And I was telling Teresa earlier that I might have a to-do list and only get half of it done because I'll be responding to other things and just doing. And I'm just like, this is my jam.
And your energy doesn't really drop until like afterwards. Like
Yeah.
Like you come home and you're like, whoa, I use the day. But when you're doing it, you're just like, yes. Like on the survey, I think one of the questions was, if you're doing something that you truly love, it lights you up, gives you energy, whatever the words were, how long can you do a task for? And I was like, oh my goodness, like 14 hours, 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah. But then something like, how long do you want to go like dig a hole? Like, 5 minutes. I got 5 minutes of energy for digging a hole. But 14 to 16 hours of
Have you found as MGs that you need variety too in like in the work, in the because that's how I am. I'm like, I could be doing like, I really love writing and creating content and stuff, and so it's like I could be working on a post for like an hour, and then I'm like, okay, different task, similar creative space, but like different task. It's like I want to be doing a variety of tasks in that flow.
Yeah.
I think
there's even a time too, Teresa, when you were like, I feel like I need to get another job. Like I want something else to do.
I was like, I don't feel satisfied enough. I need to work more,
I think this is like a very kind of kitchens thing. So I always I'll get a big space in a room and I'll set up little stations and I'll set it up. So like preservation, left environment, I'll set it up. What could I need for the whole day? And I'll kind of set it up. And then I can just spend like 9 hours hopping from station to station. And then I'll come and write, and then I'll go and do this. And then it will be like 7 p.m. at night, and I'm like, oh no, I didn't eat today, or I didn't.
Oh no.
Because you just get so like caught up. And that's definitely been one thing for me, like remembering, like, oh, body, are you okay? Nope. Okay, let's drink some water.
With an active brain too, you got to be eating like every few hours.
Yeah. What's your determination? Are you consecutive?
Yes, I'm consecutive. Yeah. So the last 2 months, I've had these 4 ingredient cookies that I bake. It's like oats, peanut butter, chocolate, and I forgot the other thing, banana, and I just eat that all day.
So I have a question for you. Are
Yeah.
you vegetarian or vegan?
I was for a long time, but I'm not anymore. Nope. Now I just let my body eat whatever it wants to eat. I do like, so I do like meat, and I do like cheese, but I just find that a lot of the time my body doesn't want to eat that much of it. But if it's wheat, sometimes, this is super gross, but sometimes I'll just eat like a pack of salami for dinner.
Yeah. It's not gross.
That's consecutive.
And
Right?
fine spleen.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we've like talked about that before, Brandy, how we know some people that are vegetarian and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I crave meat all the time, and they have a defined spleen and generator. And you know, if you have a sacral and a spleen and you don't eat meat, I mean, to each their own, but your body is probably, like the people that I talk to, they are craving it, and they're just not letting their body have it.
Yes. Yeah. They're like, oh, I can't because of this belief, or I can't because of this. And I'm like, if your body is like drooling for a piece of meat, it's, you know.
I mean, it's like, you know, I care about like the environment huge amount, but it's like if you want to be alive and healthy to do God's work, then you got to give your body what it wants. Just, you know, if you can, just try and make more conscious choices about where you go, whatever it is that you can do in your means. But yeah, I like raw meat quite a lot. I've been liking that. So whatever it feels like.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good that you allowed yourself to introduce that again, and that you
a long time for that foundation to change. Like the foundation for a long time was like, I'm a vegetarian. And it kind of happened because I went to Japan and I was there for a while, and I was like, they only eat meat here. And so I kind of begun eating meat because I had no choice, and here we are.
Maybe you ended up there for a reason then.
Really have.
Yeah.
No choice.
Let's see. Somebody said, I'm curious what your environment is to your kitchens.
Wet kitchens.
Wet kitchens, yeah. And how that relates to your foundation of place. What was that?
I'm in the kitchen right now. Kitchen.
Do you like to cook? Like, do you have fun with like wet things? Like, I'm always curious how the wet and dry shows up for people.
A theory that I had, I don't know if this has any truth to it, but a theory that I had is, so I've always loved stovetop cooking. I'm not much of an oven person because I love being able to have it in front of me and just like throw things in, taste it, swirl it. Like I always want to be doing things to it. It breaks my heart putting something in the oven and just sitting there and knowing that you open it up and poke it. Like it. Whereas I think that's a bit more of a dry environment thing, like that kind of controlled.
Yeah.
No, I love top. I love just like getting messy with it. I love painting too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very wet. I also notice like with wet kitchens, the air humidity is really important to me. I always love places that are really, really humid.
Hmm. I'm like, ugh.
Mm.
Generators can't hide their face. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, it came out.
We just nod the whole time too. I'm like, I can't not.
I know.
Uh-huh.
Watching the replay, we're all just like, oh, ooh,
But like your body's like, mmm.
yeah, yeah.
It's so funny.
Make sure we didn't miss any questions. I find the sacral feels expansive, or it feels like a physical contraction or block. Yeah, when we were talking about sacral, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Oh my gosh, it's 10:40, or we've been on for an hour and 15 minutes, and Instagram didn't kick us off.
Oh,
I don't think it kicks you off anymore. Maybe at 2 hours now or something.
I did change it actually.
They did. Yeah.
Recently, I don't remember anything else though about that.
Yeah.
That's exciting because we always want to go over an hour and we're always like, ah, shit, we were just getting good and now we have to
get off.
Sign off in 2 seconds.
So
we get to actually close this out in a nice way.
Yeah. Three MGs, all with defined throats with gate 45.
Ooh, cool. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is so fun.
Is there any hot tip or anything that you want to share with the audience, or if they want to connect with you, what are you doing with human design? Message me
on Instagram, message me here. That's it at the moment. I'm not doing readings because I decided I don't know, leave it for the projectors or whatever. At the moment, you can just come and talk to me. Don't change. And if you have 4-1 kids, ask them. They know stuff. Maybe if you have kids in general, actually. But yeah, fragile little birds. And if you're a 4-1 yourself, then don't change. Be a rock. Be a pole.
Be a pole.
Be a pole.
Be a pole.
Yeah, you're probably also never going to be able to watch your pole videos again without noticing that. Oh, one quick thing with your cognition is smell. Yeah. Your smell cognition.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Okay. I was trying to figure out what your cognition was the other night, and I was like, I telling my husband, and I was like feeling out, and I was like, I think it's smell. It feels like it's smell. I know she's consecutive, so that's cool.
It's really cool being able to like smell information. As a first line who's so interested in information, it's really cool walking past a shop and being like, no one ever goes in there.
I wonder if that's why you felt really connected to your spleen at first too, because you're splenic binary.
Connected to my what? Sorry,
your spleen. How you were saying, oh, I've always felt my spleen because the smell is connected to the spleen.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point.
That's cool. Yeah, Sarah and I were just talking about that earlier. We're like, I feel like all of the cognitions can tell when somebody is lying. It's just that we pick up the information differently, but we all can do it. Yeah. It's just like, oh, I taste the lie, or Brandy and I feel that this person is lying, you know, or you're like, I smell a rat.
Yeah, totally.
I was like watching smell cognition people talk, or just like observing them, because like they don't notice it, but I'll just, if they don't know what smell cognition is, or even if they do, but they're like, while they're thinking, they'll breathe in through their nose. And I'm like, you're just collecting data.
Yes. My brother-in-law is smell, and he'll always notice when something is off. Like, he'll be like, you guys smell that? Or did somebody fart? You know, we're like, no, none of us smell it. And he's just like, ugh. I'm like, I don't smell anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like, I can't say I've observed it a lot, but quite often often I do, you know, pause and then just like take a little second to like, or like I'm always touching my nose.
Yeah.
I found doing meditations when people are like, okay, now breathe in your mouth. And I'm like, no, I'm not. No. Yeah, I always cheated and just went for the nose.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't notice that until you said that, touching your nose, but yeah, you have been. And it makes me wonder, like, open head thought is like, what is that doing? Is it like clearing it out for more information?
Giving more information through.
Are you pulling it in?
No, that's so fun.
So awesome.
Oh, you guys, great time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for coming. This is so fun. Thanks everyone for being here.
Yeah.
We will see you next time. Human Design Coffee Talk.
We'll tag C in this so that you can go to her page if you want to go check her out, or message her if you have any questions.
Come be friends with me.
Come be friends with her. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
All right. She has really good posts. Also, your probability, I'm probability. I noticed that too. And I was like, wow, similarity is interesting. But she has a lot of good information on her page. And she's just a really fucking rad person. So
I went
Whoa.
the dog's like, get up.
Get off.
Yeah.
all right. Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.